We're going to talk about writing contracts. We're going to talk about writing your wedding scripts. We're going to talk about payment options. We're going to talk about calendar setup. All of that will help you get prepared to have a successful wedding business. Not only that, but again, just any business in particular. So, first of all, I'm going to open the floor up to those of you that have questions, and then we're going to definitely talk about those questions. Again, remember, we're going to have 3 great teachers tomorrow. They're definitely going to be talking to you about taxes. How do I file my taxes when I have my business? Then, how do I set up my business? Should I have a LLC? Should it be a sole proprietorship? How should I set my business up? And then we're going to have someone to come and really talk to you about marketing, about social media, about Google business, those important things. Those are the things that I have learned through the years of doing this business. And a lot of it was just trial and error. But with that being said, I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to go through that, because now I can help you. And again, you're going to have your moments of trial and error as well. But the greatest thing that I want for you to take away from these 2 days are definitely, how do I position myself as a wedding officiant or as a wedding decorator, as whatever your business is, how do I position myself to be successful? So right now, I'm going to open up the floor, or open up the mics, and ask anyone, or if you guys have any questions specifically, and it could be anything, from even talking about, what type of weddings do you not take? What type of weddings, what type of niche do you want? Do you want to do traditional? Do you want to do non-traditional? Do you want to just do elopements? Help me help you. That's what this is all about. Me helping you be successful, and also answering those questions that you may have. So who wants to ask the first question? And take yourself off of mute if you have a question. So we have Officiant Reese. Do you have a question that you want to ask tonight about wedding? I know you're just getting started. So what are your specific questions that you may have? And take yourself off mute.
Okay. You got me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm new in this field. And my first question is, what makes a good officiant and what makes a bad?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I would say what makes a good officiant is definitely listening to your bride and groom, finding out exactly, what they want, what their vision is for their particular ceremony. One thing I always tell my couples when I do my 15-minute free consultation is that, I'm here to work for you. But there's one thing that I will not do. I will not compromise my stance on how I feel about certain things. And I don't do animal sacrifices. and then that kind of makes them laugh. And then that way, that kind of opens up the atmosphere and makes them feel comfortable that, you're not this stiff, person, but you're, willing to listen to them and laugh and understand what their pains may be. So yeah, what makes a bad officiant, I would say, is not listening to what your couple wants. And there's nothing wrong with guiding them, because a lot of times I hear couples say, well, this is the first time that I've gotten, that I'm doing this, I'm getting married. And I have no idea, what I'm doing. And of course, for them, they don't. But you've got some people that have been married more than once, so they pretty much, know what they want for their ceremony. But that I would say communication and listening to your couple is the biggest thing that can make you a successful officiant and also
Okay.
make you a bad officiant.
Hmm.
Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, and when you finish asking your questions, put yourself on mute, so we won't get any background feed.
Okay.
We are recording all of our sessions, so
Okay.
for those of you that have purchased, your tickets for this event, you will be getting a copy of both nights, tonight and tomorrow, so you can go back and listen to anything that you may have missed. So, does anybody else, have any questions? Okay. All right. And if you do have any questions and you don't want to say, talk, on screen or whatever, we do have a chat. And if you go to, if you're on your phone, if you go on to your screen and there's like three dots at the top, press that and you'll see something that says chat, and you can actually put your message or comment, out there. And I'm going to actually do a chat right now. So I'm going to say, hello, everyone. So that's, if you see that, you should be able to see that.
Officiant Reese, this is Dr. McNair. I do have a question.
Okay.
And please excuse the background. I'm actually driving, but I will soon be to my destination. Um, I am actually an ordained um, clergy. And so I am wanting to know, even as an ordained licensed clergy that is able to, do weddings and things of that nature, would I need a separate or another license to be able to do weddings as a business?
No, you will not. That's one thing that when I first started, because of course I started out as a licensed and ordained, minister. And one thing that I found, just as long as with whatever state, you are officiating a wedding in, as long as they know that you're a licensed and ordained minister, you actually can do weddings all over the continental United States. The only place that you can't officiate weddings will be like overseas, or like say Jamaica or the Bahamas or places like that. But anywhere you're a licensed and ordained minister, through your church, or even if you've got licensed and ordained online, you are recognized as a minister, and you can officiate weddings all over the continental United States. There is one state that I know is Virginia. And Virginia is kind of funny because if you do a wedding in Virginia, depending on the county, you let's say a couple wants you to marry them in Virginia Beach, or a specific county in Virginia, what they would have to do when they go get their license, they would need to talk to the magistrate or the clerk of courts and find out if you would need to send your letter of good standing or your ordination, which is your license, which I'm going to pull mine off the wall because I always keep it. But they'll want to know about your certificate of ordination. If you've got that, and I know you probably can't see, it's a little blurry, but if you've got this and they require it, what they'll do is ask you to take a picture of it and then to either email it to them or to mail it out. Sorry about that, guys. And then once you do that, they'll send you back a letter, because I actually have one from the Commonwealth of Virginia. They'll send you back a letter, and that letter will say, Dr. McNair is a licensed minister, and she is cleared to do weddings in this particular state.
Okay, so if a couple wants to have a destination wedding, like in Jamaica or somewhere overseas, what are the, I guess, the steps of being able to honor that request and officiate their wedding?
I've done a lot of those. What happens is, based on where they're going, even though they're doing a destination wedding over there, some places require them to already be married in the United States before they go over. Then what they do is what's called, they can have an officiant from over there, but they don't have to have a license signed off on because they're already technically married over there. If they go over and they're not married, then they will have to get a license from that particular county or city where they're getting married at over in the Bahamas or whatever. The other thing that I have heard, because I actually had started out at one time wanting to do destination weddings, and what you have to do is you have to reach out to that particular clerk of courts and do the same thing. Find out if your license that you have, they recognize over there, and if it will be legal. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah, it does. I'm maneuvering trying to drive. So if you don't hear me respond back quickly, that's because I'm still
Oh, no.
driving.
Okay, no problem. But yeah, I've had that to happen where couples were like, well, where we're getting married at, they have an officiant, but technically they don't recognize uh us getting married over there. So we have to get married before we leave. And I recently just did an elopement. Reese was with me, where we had a couple where we married them in their home. I married them in their home because they were actually wanting to take their license from the United States, take it down to the clerk of courts, and get it signed off on. Because if you have a couple that does not want you to mail their license, and they want to take it down themselves, they automatically, I think the Register of Deeds and the Clerk of Courts, they will automatically sign off or notarize that particular license. And it's already official when you marry them, but it becomes official when the Register of Deeds and the Clerk of Courts, especially in Mecklenburg County, when they put their stamp and seal of approval on it.
Okay.
Yeah, but always, if you do have a couple that has requested that, oh, we want you to travel with us over to the Bahamas or the Caribbean, my thing would be contact that particular region and find out, what do you need to do in order to be able to come over and marry them over there on their soil. So hopefully that answers that question. Any other
So
questions?
I'm sorry.
No,
So
no, go ahead.
when you are reaching out to contact that region, are you going through, I mean, are you just Googling, you know, like Jamaica and their clerk of court, or what are you Googling to be able to contact that region?
That's a great question. So a lot of times when couples are setting up destination weddings, they already have a resort in mind. And a lot of times, and this is what I found out when I first started learning about destination weddings. What happens is they have a person like a wedding coordinator on site at that particular resort, and they actually will be able to give you that information. So let's say your couple is going over to what is it? I think I want to say St. Kitts or one of those places. And if they've already booked their hotel, what they can do is give you the contact person's name at that hotel. You can reach out to them via email, which is usually much easier than having to call, because those international calls can be very, very expensive. But email them and find out, hey, what do I need to do in order to marry this couple? They want me to do their wedding, and they won't be married when they get there. Who do I need to get in contact with in that area to be able to perform their ceremony?
So if the destination of where they're going, meaning their lodging, if there is an officiant there, but they're wanting you particularly to do the wedding, is there a cost that that person will have to pay in order to officiate that wedding?
It depends on that particular venue. If the venue like has a preferred officiant that they refer their couples to, then the couple will have to find out what their fee is. And of course, if it's part of, like the United States, then they would pay in American money. If it's another country, then they have to pay based on, what their currency is. But most of the time, if they have an officiant on site, they will give them a package which includes the officiant, the decorator, anybody that's catering, doing cakes. So the hotel, in what I've seen and what I've learned, is that if you want to get married over there, they should have all of that, just like a wedding planner. That's what they're considered. And then if your couple says, well, I want, my pastor to come with us to also be a part of that, you can do what's called a joint ceremony. I have seen that done where, or either you do the ceremony and then the person that's legally binding, that can legally bind that contract, they can sign off on that marriage certificate. So, but definitely, I would always encourage you, or any of you, if you want to do destination weddings, always do your research. Find out, first of all, as an officiant, is my license recognized over there? And if it can be, what do I need to do in order to get my paperwork over there in time, to perform the ceremony? If they don't recognize it, should I marry the couple before they leave? And then I can go over there with them and we still can perform the ceremony per se. It's just that you don't have to sign off on the paperwork, or like I said, work hand in hand with the officiant that they have as a preferred vendor.
Okay, and as far as your attire, um, do you just 100% have to have like a clergy robe on, or could you just simply wear, say for an example, if their colors are a mint green? I know you want to distinguish yourself from the guests, but would it be inappropriate to officiate a wedding in the same colors that the theme colors are for the wedding?
That's a great question as well. That is one of the things that I actually have in my contract. I ask, and when I do my consultation, I ask the couple, what would you like me to wear? Because a lot of times, and I'm just going to say this, a lot of times, well, I want to make sure that I say this politically correctly. You have different types of ceremonies, and people are doing all kind of things. They have themes. They want you to dress up. They may have a Halloween theme. They may have a Christmas theme. They may have, there's what do they call it, Viking theme. I've seen it all. I've seen all that kind of stuff. And again, that's your preference of what you want to do. But with that being said, I always follow up with the couple at the consultation. I say, my normal attire is I can do a robe, um, if you desire, or I can wear all black, or I can wear black and then I have a hint of color of what is in your wedding. So to be on the safe side, have that conversation with them. So no, you don't always have to have a clergy robe. A lot of times, most of the traditional weddings that I've done, they do want me to wear the clergy robe. So if you're doing a traditional wedding, just find out if that's the preference, if they would like you to have on either a cream robe or white or black or just whatever your clergy attire is. Find out definitely from them if that's what they want. If not, a lot of times they're very um, satisfied with you either wearing black with a hint of color from the bridal party, um, or you can even wear colors of that. I have done that before as well.
Okay. And what about headpiece? As far as I know, sometimes I have seen you with your head wrap, but as far as like something like as bold as a hat, but wearing a hat on your head, would that be inappropriate?
I would say yes. And the reason why I say that is because I've seen just with the officiant group that I'm a part of on Facebook and on other social medias, that's one of the things that was addressed. You know, as a man, should I wear a hat? Now, again, if they say, well, you know, this is a theme wedding, and they say you can wear a hat, and the reason why at that time when you saw me with the head wrap on, that was actually because my hair was growing out, and that was my way of not not having to do my hair. But it became almost like a signature because people would ask me all the time, and I even ran into people that follow me on Facebook and was like, I know you, you're Catrina, you're the wedding officiant. And I'm like, how do you know me? And it was like, because I know, you know, you wear that wrap on your head. So that actually, to be honest with you, Dr. McNair, that started out as just covering my head because of a bad hair day, and it just stuck with me for that year. But you know, then once I got my hair, you know, kind of taken care of, I stopped wearing it. But I still wear it every now and then. But as a wrap, that's not a problem. That's not considered a hat. Um, but like a hat would be, you know, like you said, you know, like a hat that you wear, a full hat, you know, like women wear, you know, dressy hats and things like that. So yeah.
Okay. And then as the officiant, um, what are the boundaries in regards to that person doing premarital counseling? Are there any, or um, if you, I guess, if you have not specifically have had any training outside of, you know, this particular workshop, and you're not necessarily like a pastor over a church, or you know, whatever the case is,
Mhm.
how does that work with you as the officiant doing premarital counseling?
That's a great question as well. That comes down to, you know, what you feel your niche is. And the reason why I say niche is because I know my husband, he specifically doesn't want to really deal with long wedding ceremonies. He likes elopements. So elopements don't require, I mean, let me not say that because I did do an elopement, and but it was so far in advance, they did request that they wanted to have some counseling. I do offer counseling. I offer 4 sessions, 1 hour sessions. We do those in the evening via Zoom. And then they take a test at the end, um, after we finish with their sessions. But that's really up to you. If you decide, as you know, you're a pastor, and a lot of times with pastors, I have heard a lot of pastors say that, you know, well, I'm not going to marry them without them doing premarital, counseling or coaching. And then that's fine, because if that's what the couple wants, most definitely offer that. And if you do want to offer that, then let them know that, yeah, I do offer, some type of premarital, consultation, counseling, coaching, whatever you want to call it. And then work on, some topics that you feel they need to really talk about and engage in, because that's one of the things that I definitely do. I talk to them about, actually, I have a checklist, and I send that out to them when they decide that they want to do counseling. And so it's everything. I mean, literally everything from beginning to end about relationships, finances, budgeting, sex, communication, trust, because people come with baggage. People come with certain things. And so those are very important. And if they know, or if you sense, that they're just not ready, be honest enough with them to tell them, I know you guys have already set a date, but I think you might want to, really revisit working on some issues in this relationship. It could be trust, it could be a gamut of different things. So I would say that you don't have to be, unless they're coming for actually counseling, and there's a difference between counseling and there's a difference between coaching. So if they're coming just for you to talk about, some of the pitfalls that can happen in relationships, in marriage, definitely do your research, because those are the things that I definitely do. And I talk with other professionals as well, marriage, professionals that do this on a regular basis. So I've begun to hone my craft as well. So you don't have to be a licensed counselor to do premarital counseling. Most pastors feel like they're already qualified enough to do that, but that's your choice.
Okay, so I know, and I'm sorry y'all for asking all these questions,
No,
but
no, no. This is what tonight is. This is
oh,
Q&A night. Yes, definitely.
okay, so and God rest his soul. My spiritual father, Rayfield Metcalf, I had a conversation when I was a member of his church in regards to just, premarital counseling or whatever, and if he ever had an experience with a couple actually coming, for premarital counseling, and through that counseling, um, him actually the Holy Spirit just speaking to him in respect to this couple, not they are just not ready right now. So he said to me, yes, and he said that he had advised the couple to, just wait another 6 months. And this was right at their timing of having their wedding during that season. They did take the advice, but what happened was 6 months later, they actually did not get married. And I just want to know, what is your experience, or have you had that type of situation where just something, the Holy Spirit just sharing with you, this couple is not ready. And then later on, they finds out within themselves, yeah, um, this is not it. So have you had that type of experience? And then after that, have you had the opportunity just to kind of individually either cancel those individuals, or the person that wants it, or coaching them afterwards? Have you had that to happen? And was it a success story, meaning they both went on their separate ways, but they also connected with the person that God had for them?
Good question. Good question. And yes, to all of those. um, I'm actually working with a couple. They haven't set a date yet, but they wanted to have premarital counseling before. He's been married before, she's been married before, and They wanted it beforehand, which is great. When you have a couple that wants it before they start making all these plans about, venue and caterer and all that stuff, that is fantastic. I have had two situations where I actually did counseling. The couple weren't as close to their wedding date because what I try to do, if they want counseling, I try to do it over a span of 6 months up until, because everybody's calendar is kind of busy. So what I do is I try to spread it out. I do my first session with them together. I do the second with either the male or the female. I do the third with the male or the female, either one. And then the last one we do together. So it gives them on their individual session time to actually be able to empty up, even though I asked them, have you guys talked about these things? Have you had these discussions? And it's interesting to find out that they say they have, but when they get in their individual sessions, it's obvious they really haven't asked that question to their partner. So I had a couple that, yes, they canceled their wedding because she just felt like that they weren't ready. They were not ready. They were getting married in Monroe at this place called Champagne Manor and had put down money for deposit, but they were not ready. And I sensed they weren't ready. And so at the end, I had the conversation, but again, I said, you guys are adults. And if you still decide you want to get married, even though this is what I see, this is the things I feel like you need to work on. That's your business. So I did have two couples that actually did that. And she's moved on. She's not in another relationship, and he's moved on. And when I followed up with her a couple of months back, she's was good about it. She was like, that's what we needed. We really needed to sit down and find out if we were a good match together. And not saying that they couldn't have worked it out, but with counseling, when you give them the tools and when you give them things to do, if they don't do them and you follow back up and you say, hey, so did you guys decide? Did you pick a date night? Did you decide who was going to be the person that was going to do the budgeting? Whenever you had an argument, did you put these tools in place to find out, hey, I'm not going to overtalk my partner. I'm going to let my partner talk and I'm going to listen to what they've got to say because it could be important. And what they say, it may be true. So if they don't put the tools in place, because I tell them, I have nothing to gain, but you have everything to gain. And if you follow some of these techniques, you will have a successful marriage. You're going to hit some bumps, you're going to hit some rocks, but try at least to remember why you decided to get married and that if we're getting married, we're going to work this out. And that's the main thing. Everybody, it's not a 50-50 thing. It's a 100% thing. He has to put 100% into it. She has to put 100% into it. So yes. And then I have had couples that have come to me after they've gotten married and I've done sessions as well and they're still together.
Okay, so one additional question because this is important to me on similar basis, only because, but for me, there's a thin line here, as far as couples living together before marriage. So is that one of those taboo topics that you kind of stay away from? Or is that one of the things that you may discuss or talk about in the premarital counseling?
I do, because I'm going to be honest with you, probably 100% of the couples that I've married in the last maybe 2 years have lived together. they're either cohabitating now, or they are in the process of doing that because either they're buying a home and they know that they're going to be getting married, and this is not just shacking, just to be shacking. They know that they've got plans, that they know they're going to be married, and they are working towards buying a home together and doing different things. So yes, they know up front that I'm a Christian counselor, I'm a Christian coach, I'm a minister, but
But do you
I
advise them,
I don't. And the reason why
even if
that
they're buying a house or whatever together?
yeah, the reason why I don't is because a lot of times and when I talk to them during counseling, you would be amazed that they've already gotten that feedback from family. You get what I'm saying? Mom's already said to the daughter, well, I don't want y'all living together, but if this is what y'all feel like y'all got to do, y'all grown, this, that, and the other, whatever. So they've already gotten that. And they share, some of them share with me that, my mom or my dad didn't want us to be, living together, but, we've already bought this house. We're planning on getting married. We've got both of our names on the on the
And
mortgage.
what if they have a family, meaning pregnant or children already together?
Some of them, yes, I do. And I've even had some situations where the bride, um, it was interesting because when they booked me for the wedding, she wasn't pregnant. When we got to the wedding, she was actually pregnant. I mean, she was actually showing at that point. So along the time that they were planning the wedding, and they weren't even cohabitating at the time, it just happened. She got pregnant. But they decided that they still wanted to get married. So they still went along with their plans.
Oh, okay. And in that counseling, if they have a blended family, meaning a well, you already know what that means, but just to go through as you're taping it, if they have, like, if she have a child from another relationship and he have a child from another relationship, what will be, I would say, like the scope of just the advisement concerning handling those particular dynamics? Because sometimes, you know, it can be a burden. Sometimes it can be a blessing. And I'm saying this meaning from the bird view, eye view that they may have,
Mm-hmm.
or it may be where somebody doesn't like someone, doesn't get along, because at the point of marriage, if they're getting ready to get married,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure either his children or a child or in hers have met, and I'm sure they have done some things as a family probably, and then discover that, okay, there's conflict here, there's discourse here, what's going on. So how would you approach that, and how would you handle that as far as advisement?
Oh, wow. I've had that before. I have a lot of couples definitely that have blended families. And one of the blended family couples weddings that I did recently, when we were talking about counseling, there was some conflict in there where she had a daughter and a son, and she had been single for a long time. And then he had a daughter from a previous relationship. And so they did have some issues. They were honest enough, and they were open and transparent enough to say, we've had those issues at the very beginning. My son, he felt like that, he had been the man of the house for so long, and why was another man coming in here and blah 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 this. But one of the things that I tell them, that's very important. You still are going to have possibly some situations where the blended families, they may not all get together and be on one accord. However, it's really about making sure that we all know that, you want mom to be happy and you want dad to be happy. And if this person is making them happy, then by all means, then, just sometimes take your how you feel about it, put it aside and just say, I've never seen my mom this happy before, or I never seen my dad this happy before. And am I being selfish? Because I've had conversations with children, in reference to that, in reference to saying that, well, I really didn't like him at first. I thought he was, too bossy. He's not my dad. What the men are coming in and saying, you have a father. I'm not here to be your dad. So that's what you do. You have those conversations in order to understand. You want your family to get along. You want them to blend. And so with that being said, you have those conversations with them. And if there's still some friction going on, then I always recommend that they go to a professional counselor who is um, who is good at those type of situations, blended families. And I just want to put that out there. A lot of times it's really not about whether mom's got a new man and he's coming in her life and he's taking over my place, or taking her attention. It's a lot of times there's still some friction going on between either the mother and son, or the son and the mother and the daughter, and vice versa. And those need to be worked on separately. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, it does.
Okay. Okay.
That makes sense. And then I think for now, I'm gonna give you a break and let somebody else. One last thing, financially, um, as far as does it make sense, or is it even necessary to even establish your own chapel, meaning a venue where you yourself have either rented out space or bought space or whatever the case is concerning a venue to have your weddings?
Oh, most definitely. I have a lot of officiant friends that have reached out and started doing that. One officiant that I met in Fayetteville, that's what she did. She actually rented out an office space, um, because she technically was part of a church, but her pastor would not. I mean, she could do weddings there, but as far as charging, um, she wasn't allowed to do that because that church was a 501(c)(3), and all of um, that legalistic stuff that goes with that. So she rented out a space where she could decorate, put her arch in, and you know have her own ceremonies, and then she could charge for a venue space as well.
Okay, and so what would you say would be like a fair or even a competitive amount to charge or even rent your space out for?
Now, if you're doing that, if let's say it just depends. It depends on what most places. I would say when we did our venue, um, our family reunion center, when we would rent ours out for weddings, we would charge $300. But again, that was 10 years ago. Now, because of COVID and things have gotten to be more expensive, especially you've got lights, electricity, you got water, there's other things that if you've got a space, you got to pay rent, whatever, then you definitely need to do your homework and find out, if it's going to be profitable for you to charge, and what will be the best rate for you. Because a lot of couples do want to find a nice place to get married. It could be all inclusive, or you just want to, come in, bring a couple of, family and friends, and come in and get married, and then leave, not have any reception, anything like that. So I would encourage anybody to do their due diligence in researching that. But it could depend. You could start from 300 and go up, especially for a venue.
Okay, and that 300 was just like your base amount, or is it based on the size of the of
Um,
your venue that you may have?
it was a flat
A
rate
flat rate. Okay.
based on the venue, and then how many hours you would allow them, to have that space. Because most weddings typically are 30 minutes. The lengthy thing really is the reception, but if they're just coming in and doing a wedding, having a ceremony, and they just want to use the venue to get married, I would say $300 wouldn't be a lot to ask someone to pay. Anybody else got any questions? Um, Officiant Reese, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time. I don't.
Okay, great. So one of the other things I wanted to, and Dr. McNair, did you have any additional questions?
I was just gonna ask, so really that base pay, that base charge of what you may charge them to officiate a wedding, basically it probably shouldn't go any higher than that, or would you say it probably shouldn't go? Because what I concern myself about is charging too much, um, as far as doing a wedding. And so I'm just trying to, you know, I'm just trying to just because for me, I would look at it as being, well, let me just do like a base because I'm not trying to, put another dent um in someone's pocket, because we know that when you're planning weddings, it's already expensive.
Yeah.
So, you may, I don't know if it should be just like a percentage or whatever, but then also like if for me, since I am full connected ordained pastor, if one of my members want to get married in a different venue, do you, if they want to get married somewhere else outside of the church, do you, and you have like your own venue or like your in your church, would you just, how would you do that? How would you handle that?
Well, again, that will come with your consultation with your couple. If they are part of your church and your church charges a fee for rentals, then and that would include you also performing this ceremony, because again, we'll talk about contracts as well, because that's a totally different animal when you get outside of doing outside venues, out of you renting a place. So what I would suggest is, if you are going to be doing that at your church and you're going to be offering for members and non-members, definitely find out, like you said, what you want to charge as a church. And then if you decide on that, again, if that will include also your services as far as performing the ceremony, because you are connectional, maybe reach out to some of the other pastors that are in the connection in different areas of, in different states, and find out, what they're doing. I always believe in networking. I always believe in finding out if somebody else is doing this, what do you charge? Because I know for a fact, a lot of churches, when somebody's getting married, if they're a member, they don't get that done for free, because they got
No,
to.
that's right. Because even with funerals, if you are a member, then it's still a charge for you. It's not free. It's $400. And that's just where I am at my church. And if you are not a member, it's $800. So you get half the price if you are a member, and then if you are not a member, it's $800.
Okay. So that sounds like that's a great thing. And again, if somebody's getting married and they want to use the church, if they're a member, I would say $400 is good. And again, if you want to make sure that your, if you want to give a percentage of that to the church, and then you keep a percentage as far as, because you're doing a service as well, and don't forget that.
Well,
But
that's
if
the
you,
other part that I wanted to discuss with you, because I never take a percentage,
okay,
meaning whether it's they are a member, or if they are a non-member wanting to use, our church, I never take a percentage from me, meaning the person that are the officiant. It all goes back into the general fund. So, and I have not even thought until now, that would even be anything to consider. Um, that because you are officiating, that, and even though you're here at the church and this is the portion of what has been charged, as far as taking or having or even presenting like a portion of it back. Normally, in my experience, it's been where the family or the couple actually will, do a love offering
mm-hmm.
to the pastor or the officiant. So that's been what my experience have been, even as a pastor doing a funeral. It will be with the family, will give like a love offering. So I'm because I'm seriously looking at this as being an additional addendum to just me as a servant leader, to have not only this in the community, but even on my job, because I actually work at a skilled nursing and rehabilitation. And I hear those residents there saying all the time, well, I want to get out of this place because I want to get married to so and so. And they already dating somebody in the facility, and both of them are planning, to be discharged back with their families or even making arrangements, but they're wanting to be married. So I have run into that. I have not presented any type of contract or anything to the administrator or even the owners of the building, to be able to do this as a regional officiant to all of their business, because one company that owns like 11 of the facilities, and we're getting a new owner that's taking over the building in March. So I was just like, okay, should I present him with a contract? And if so, I would like the verbiage of the contract to make sense, sound right, and be fair.
Gotcha. And that's a great idea, Um, and I have no idea if other facilities have even thought about that before. Like you said, that's a service that you guys can offer, those tenants, not tenants, but those patients or whatever that are staying at the facilities.
Wait a minute, look, did I just give out my secret? I shouldn't have told y'all that.
No, that's not I wouldn't think that would be a secret, but again, you never know, because some facilities may already have been doing that. They just don't advertise it. You get what I'm saying? It's inclusive. So it's already in the house. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they have a clergy. They could have clergy already on staff there, that when somebody wants to do that at an assisted living facility, or there's some of those facilities where, some of the elderly, they what do they call it when they're it's not assisted living, it's where they live on the property and they are pretty much able, they still can drive.
It's independent living.
Independent living,
Yeah, because
yes, yes.
you have assisted living, you have skilled nursing, and then you have independent living, but it's in a community,
Correct.
uh, as what you just shared.
Correct. So you never know, that again, that's something that can be offered, that your facility, could have. And just in case you have someone that, that wants to do that. So I would definitely follow up with the administration or the owners, and give that proposal, come up with like you said, a proposal or a contract, and offer it to them. The only thing they can say is no.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and so let's segue. That's a good. That's a good. Did you have any more questions?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Not
Okay.
right now.
Okay. So, and that's a good segue into contracts. Whoa, let's talk about contracts. So recently, I'm so grateful that my husband is now in the business with me. So he had an opportunity to look at one of my contracts, and I was able, how I developed my contract was, I tell people I'm not going to say the word, but I'm an information junkie. So whenever I want to know anything, I Google, I just Google. And so that's how I was able to find a template for my contracts that I do. And then I worked it and fixed it up where it suited not only me, but I knew that it would also suit, my couples. I had to tweak it some because when COVID hit, that changed the whole game of weddings because people were either canceling weddings or either they still wanted weddings, but they had to make them in smaller sizes. You had to make sure that you were protected as an officiant or as a coordinator or a decorator or a caterer or whatever, the services. You had to make sure, that the state said you had to be masked. So, during that time, I was still doing weddings, but I had to be masked. So I had to follow state, and national guidelines. So with that being said, that also changed my contract. So your contract should always be a workable document where it should always be updated and tweaked. You should the main things that you should have in your contract is I'm gonna see if I can share, if I can pull up a share.
Will we get worksheets, like the contract example, a template? Would that be a part of this?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna pull up one, but you'll actually get to have one. You'll get to see one tomorrow. Let's see.
And will we be able to have one, like download different workshops, even your list of questions that you actually use as a staple for premarital counseling?
That will be available as well. Yeah, let me see if I can. I'm gonna pull up one of my standard contracts. And like I said, most of my contracts I've done myself, and we'll talk about, what you need to have in that contract. So let me see if I can pull this one up. And you tell me if you can you see that? Can you guys see?
I don't know about anyone else.
Can you see that? Dr. McNair, can you see that contract?
Oh, I cannot. That's what I was saying. I cannot.
Okay,
But I don't
all right.
know if
Let me
anyone
slide.
else can see it or not.
Okay, let me slide it over there and then tell me if you can see it now. Can you see it now?
I don't. What I see is just like your various Word documents, but it's not enlarged. It may be enlarged on your end, but it's not enlarged on our end.
What about now? Can you see it now?
I cannot. Can you, Reese or anyone else that's on the line, can y'all see it?
Can you see it now? Let me see. Oh, I know what it is. I know what happened. Okay, so let me do it now. Let's see. I had to stop sharing. Now that should be it. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now.
Perfect. Okay. So this is, Reese, can you see that standard contract? You're on me. Can you see that contract?
Yes, it.
Okay. All right. So this is my standard contract, which has been revised numerous times. So what I normally do, because, one of the things that people are very fickle about, they want to make sure that what you're doing is professional. They want to make sure that you are who you say you are. I've had people to, ask me for a copy of my ordination license. I've had people to want references I've had people to say that they Google me to find out if I was, who I said I was. So just be mindful that people, when they're spending their money, they want to make sure that they aren't getting, swindled. So be with all of your documents. I make sure that all of my documents have my logo on them, my document list, who I am, my full disclosure of my address, phone number, my website, my email address, and then what type of ceremony this is. So this is a standard local ceremony that I charge for local weddings. And it pretty much just says this agreement, and the blanks are what the couple has to fill out. And it says this is a binding contract between myself as the officiant, my bride and groom. They have to fill out where the ceremony is going to take place. It shows how much I charge and the terms of this agreement. With that being said, on line 4, it talks of line 4 and 5. It talks about, we were talking about dress earlier. It tells them what time I will arrive. It talks about travel, as far as what's included in my fee, if there's going to be a rehearsal. I just recently, which I got to add, I'm going to be adding a late fee because I've run into that a lot where people just think that, okay, I've got that person, I've already hired them, but they make you, sometimes the weddings can be 45 minutes to an hour late. So, just with counsel with other officiants and other pastors, they say, no, it's not wrong to charge a late fee or a late charge, because people don't realize you're using up your time. You're giving them a service, but you're also, time is money, and you have to think about this. Yes, you're a man or woman of God, but you have to think about this as this is my business. And what happens is sometimes you can double book yourself. I've had that happen years ago. I don't do that anymore, but I had a point where I had double booked myself because I was in the same location in Charlotte. Okay, if the weddings you say is at 1 and then the other wedding is at 5, that's plenty of time, because normally weddings are no more than an hour. I normally don't stay for the reception. I stay there long enough to make sure that the documents are signed at the end of the ceremony, and then I'm out. And then if I need to go to my next ceremony, then I'm out. But, I've had, situations where, people are just not cognizant of time, and sometimes it's because of their other vendors, which could be makeup artists, which could be hairstylists. It could even be them, they figure, okay, well, this is my day, and, everybody has to bow to me. And, granted, it is, the couple's day, but you have to be mindful that you got people that are providing a service for you, and you have to be, you can't be that selfish. I'm just going to put it like it is. You can't be that selfish to think that they, have to be there that whole time, because this is a business, if that makes sense. So this is my standard contract. I talk about, making sure that they know that they have to get their own license, which they do, because now based on, certain states, officiants years ago and could go and actually pick up the license and have blank licenses. But now the couple has to go down to the clerk of courts, and they have to actually purchase the license with their ID and show their ID to make sure they're who they say they are. So now that has to be done first. You have to go and get your license and bring that with you to the ceremony. So I specified that they have to bring their license. We talk about date and time, excessive tardiness. I always require a deposit, because with that, once they booked me, then I go in and I start working on their ceremony. I don't, all of my ceremonies I've written myself. They're not out of a particular ministry, book. I get with the couples and we talk about what their ceremony, what they want their ceremony to look like, and what they wanted to say and to express to each other and to their family and friends that are coming. So it's not the deposit. Not only books me, but it also makes I begin to do the work for them that needs to be done.
What is that? So what do you as a deposit, what are you charging them for deposit?
So if you see my on line 3, my fee
Uh-huh.
for a local wedding is 300. Are you able to see
Okay.
that?
And no,
It didn't come
I,
back through. Did it go again?
no, it's just that I mean, I don't know about any research you all on here. I've had those eye concerns. So stuff has to be for me kind of extremely large.
Oh, okay. Well,
I was just gonna let that do for tonight because you had said that we will get um
can you,
the
wait,
download and the
yeah. Can you see? Hold on. I'm gonna try to make it a little bit bigger. Can you see that now?
now your screen is blank. It's dark. It's not even nothing up there now.
Okay. What about this one? Can you see it over here now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. Is that big enough? You may make it a little bit bigger.
Can you make it bigger?
Can you see that?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go back to the top. So I usually have my logo, my demographic information. I talk about the agreement, how it's binding between myself and then the bride and groom. I put the logistics information about the date, month, year, and the time of the ceremony. I need the venue, and I need the address. Then, as you get down, it talks about that I am warrant is, the officiant warrants that she is a official, professional officiant, recognized as a legal licensed and ordained minister, fully qualified to officiate all weddings in the continental United States of America. My fee is listed here on 3. On 4, it talks about the kind of conversation that the bride and groom will I have. We can talk over the phone, we can meet in person, we can do via email. And then that's part of the consultation portion of it. Then I talk to them about arrival time, what time that I usually get there. I've really got to update this because depending on how far I'm traveling, I usually get there about an hour early just to make sure that I don't run into any traffic or anything like that. But at least
Do you charge by miles? Well,
no,
where
I
you
do
have to
not.
travel to?
Yeah,
Okay.
my fee is a flat fee. I charge no additional. I know some officiants do charge for mileage, but because I charge so much, my travel fee is included in my fee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then we talk about the dress attire. We talk about my service includes travel to the rehearsal ceremony itself, any pictures that I need to be there to be in. Sometimes, I do require a picture with the bride and groom. That's part of my marketing, which is in 6. And then if we go down, you'll see where the deposit. So the deposit is half of what the fee is. And that's with all of my contracts, whether they're local, non-local, whether I'm coordinating, I'm planning, whatever. I always charge half of that. And then the
Oh, the
balance,
150.
yeah.
Okay.
And then the balance is due either the day of the ceremony, after I've signed up on their license, or I finish doing whatever services they employed me to do. And then that's pretty much it. I don't take checks because we've had issues with bounce checks before, but you make that determination in your contract, what you will and what you will not accept. We also talk about, I don't purchase anything like unity candles, sand, Now people are doing hand fasting, which I do hand fasting ceremonies. The broom, jump in the broom, they do jump in the broom. They do now what's called a tree planting, where they bring a tree and then they talk about in the ceremony what the different elements of the water is to the tree, what the root to the tree means. So there's all different kinds of ceremonies that are included inside or rituals that are included inside of your ceremony. So, but I don't purchase any of those types of things. And then you always should have a cancellation and a postponement policy, talking about, this is what I had to add in the last couple of years, talking about COVID, or even if I'm in an accident and I can't make it, I talk about how I do my due diligence to find another officiant that will be able to, stand in on my behalf if I can't make it for whatever reason.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So and those things happen. Cars break down, you get sick. During this, COVID time, I got sick with COVID and I was not able to go to do a wedding in Ohio. And so I had to find another officiant. It wasn't an officiant. I was doing actually the wedding coordinator. I had to find another local wedding coordinator that could step in and do that for.
Do you give them a portion of their money back when that happens?
Yes, everything is always should be in your contract. If that happens, I do stipulate that again, if it's beyond my control, I still do my due diligence and will give a portion, of the feedback. The deposit, however, is non-refundable. But they have been times, God has placed on my heart to to give the refund back, the deposit back. I'm not one of those that says, no, I'm not going to give it back, because I know people have had, hardships or something has happened. So I have had plenty of times where, especially during COVID, where I gave the deposit back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But again, that's a conversation that you and God need to have. Sometimes I haven't. Sometimes I've kept the deposit because something has happened. And even if they change the date and don't tell you, me and my daughter, and Reese can attest to this, we drove all the way to Virginia to do a wedding. I mean, it was like, was it 3.5 hours, Reese? 3.5 hours. And the young lady
Closer to 4.
changed the location of the venue and did not make me aware. So my daughter and we got there to the venue, to the original venue, and nobody was there. And so we called her and she was like, oh, I thought I told you we changed the venue, which was another hour out. So
do you charge extra if they do that?
Well, what ended up happening, which was by the grace of God, my non-local prices are way higher than my local prices. So to be honest with you, it really kind of washed out as far as gas. But no, but that's why now I've added certain things in there. If you change the location, I don't have to come and I don't owe you your deposit back because you didn't tell me that in a timely manner. So everything is stipulated in the contract. And if they don't adhere to the contract, then you don't owe them anything back. So make sure all of your bases are covered. So I'll definitely have a copy of this and you'll get to read everything in here that I've tried to make sure that was covered where it came to those type of situations. Because you want to make sure that you don't get stuck.
Yeah, and that's important. And for me, I look at it as, why invent the wheel if it's already there in place? And if you know that God has called you to the service of work, it's not a competition, it's not competitive, it's not nothing. It's just, you being able to just pass information on. And as you said, in different cases, it may be where you may have to tweak it, a little bit depending on what is happening in that particular specified situation. So these things have been helpful.
Great, great. And so another thing I want to talk to you guys about, as well as ceremonies, because again, couples, whether they've been married before or whether this is their first time, they have an idea. Some say, well, we're going to write our vows. And that's great, because writing your own vows is part of the wedding ceremony, but it's not the whole gamut. People think, well, okay, well, yeah, we're going to write our own ceremonies, but that's great. But you got to remember, there's a ring ceremony part in there. There's the welcome. So there, I'm going to also share one of my uh, wedding ceremonies that I do.
So if they write their own, do you lessen your price?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
I just thought,
No. No.
Right. Well,
No.
we wrote these vows.
And the reason why I say that, because I'm getting ready to show you what one of my ceremonies looks like. And I'll tell you why, because again, let me hit my share button. Hopefully this will pick it up. Okay. So can you guys see that? Let me make it a little bit bigger. Can y'all see that? Uh-oh. Is that too big? Can y'all see that ceremony?
I can see it. I can see
great.
it.
Reese, can you see
good.
it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
So so going back, a lot of times couples will say, well, we're not really religious, we're spiritual, and we don't really want a traditional wedding. I've had couples say they don't want a prayer, or they don't want a scripture. They want it to be inspirational. So they consider that non-religious. And so I tell them, I say, well, when you think about what non-religious is, are you saying that you don't want to have certain words? And you have to have those conversations with them. Are there certain words? Are you saying that you don't want, do you not want God in it? You want Jesus in it, whatever. And so if they say, no, we don't want, God in it. And I'm saying, but do you want something inspirational in there? And they're like, yeah. So I've written specifically certain ceremonies for certain types of people. Again, I'm not getting away from my spiritual roots, but I try to keep something inspirational in there that does talk about, our spiritual being, which is God and Jesus.
So will you provide that for us? Because for me, and only because I'm Methodist, I only have one ceremony. Like, I don't have like different rituals. I only have one.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what and so that's usually what a lot of pastors tell me, and a lot of couples say, they're like, well, we don't really want that one ceremony, because it sounds like the last ceremony that we went to our friends and that sounded like theirs. So that's why God gave me the vision to write my own ceremonies, to talk about what I felt marriage was about. And all of my ceremonies are, different. I have a traditional, that's straight traditional, straight out of what a traditional ceremony that a pastor or a minister or whatever would do. And that's just what it is. So I ask couples all the time, what type of ceremony did you guys want? Or what do you want? So that is part of your consultation. So with this one, this is what I call one of my non-traditional ceremonies. And if you look at it, it does have God in there. And when I say non-traditional, what I mean non-traditional is it's not the straight thee, thou, and thus, those types, but it still talks about God, angels. It has prayers in them, but it's just not one of the standard traditionals. So when you meet with them, find out, first of all, what type of ceremony they want. And then keep templates. I keep my templates on hand, which kind of gives them an idea of, what a full ceremony looks like. So we do the welcome. You always want your welcome. Then from that point, by this time, once the bride has already come in, dad or whoever has walked her in, you're standing up there in front of, everyone. Bride and groom is right in front of you. Dad or whoever is still there, escort, mom and dad. I've seen ceremonies where mom and dad walk them in, and then once you do that, then you ask, who gives this bride to be wed? And then from that point, the father or escort or mom and dad, whatever, they go sit down. Then at that point, I have a prayer. And so then I list the prayer in there. Then I talk about what marriage is about. You know, the essence of marriage and what, marriage is about: love, dedication, trust. So you always want to not give an education piece, but talk about the importance of what marriage is. It's a covenant. And then we go into the vows. Now, this is where couples say, well, we're writing our own vows. And that's great, because if they're writing their own vows, they'll usually have, I thought I had one, but a lot of times they buy these things called vow books, and the bride will have one and the groom will have one. And then they'll repeat their own vows to one another. And when they do that, you don't have to have your vows in there, but these are vows that, I have myself. So if they write their own vows on this portion where the vows are, then that's when you turn it over and say, at this time, the bride and groom have written their own vows to one another. And so you give the groom the opportunity to go first. Then after he's finished, the bride goes next. And then you move into your ring exchange. So that's when I tell couples, it's just not about writing your own vows. Your ceremony has different components to it. It's not just the vows, but it's the welcome, it's the vows. If they have prayer, and then you do a prayer with if they want prayer, you do prayer with the ring exchange, and then you charge the couple. There's a charge. There's a mandate that I give them, talking about not holding grudges, being able to forgive. So again, all of my ceremonies are different. Then you have the pronunciation of the marriage, and then if they just if they you seal it with a kiss, and then how they want to be announced at the end. Sometimes I'll include, like, if they want to do a sand ceremony or a candle lighting or jumping the broom, is usually near the end. So let's say this is a ceremony and they want to jump the broom. So right after it says, "It is my honor and privilege that I present to you Mr. and Mrs." and whatever their name is. Then I have them to turn around, and then I tell the audience that at this time, the couple has decided to do, the jumping of the broom, and then we talk about the essence of what jumping of the broom, is all about, the history behind that, and then that's pretty much it for. So that's usually, what one of my non-traditional ceremonies look like. And but like I said, I have various kinds. I even have elopement ceremonies where they're not even half this long, because an elopement is usually about 5 or 10 minutes. But this ceremony usually takes about 15, 20 minutes.
With the elopement, do you charge the same fees even if it's an elopement?
No, with the elopements, they're half the price of my local. Stop sharing the screen. Yeah, my elopements are $150.
Oh, okay. And then they pay half of the 150.
Some of them, they can pay half of it, or a lot of times, because they could be calling me the day of, and because I really haven't had an opportunity to get the contract or anything to them, I'll send them over the contract and I'll say, when you get here, because I've married people at our house before, and when they come, they either pay me cash, I write them a receipt, or either they cash app me or Zelle me or whatever. So with elopements, sometimes I'll take a deposit and sometimes or they'll pay me the money, before they get here, or either they'll pay me, after the ceremony is performed. But
What if they don't
that's to your discretion.
What if they have to have if they doing the elopement, do you provide what if they don't have witnesses? Do you provide like a stand-in witness for them?
Normally when I talk to them, I tell them that they have to have witnesses, especially with North Carolina. North Carolina, their marriage license requires 2 witnesses. I've had one situation where a couple came and eloped. They only brought 1 witness. So I had to get I had to get my neighbor. She had to come out and be a witness and then sign the ceremony. But you
That's
always just
funny.
want to make them aware that with North Carolina, you have to have 2 witnesses. And then I've had Reese to sign off. He's been with, here before when I've done him at the house, and he's been a witness, and I had him to sign off before. So, but always make them aware. North Carolina, you do have to have witnesses. I think Virginia, Georgia, um, South Carolina, their license, only the bride and groom sign.
Oh, okay. Is there a reason why that then?
I just think it's the way that they have it set up. They're and I'm gonna have some templates tomorrow at our session during Saturday. I'm gonna show you what the different marriage licenses look like from different states, and where you have to fill in your portion as the officiant, where the witnesses sign. And again, like South Carolina, as far as I know, they're the only one where the bride and groom have to sign. I haven't done any other far off states, so I'm not sure, but I know South Carolina for a fact. The bride and groom signs off. They don't have witnesses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting, and that's also good to know because my church, and I know a lot of people in South Carolina.
Yeah. So the forms signing the marriage license forms, the marriage license forms are really each county and each state are different. Because I know when I did a couple of weddings in Virginia, their form is a little more compact. So when you're signing off on the forms, just be mindful of when you're writing on it. Sometimes you have to use smaller print. Some people, write, really big. So I have to let people know that when you're signing, try to sign it with a smaller print or, signature, because there's a lot of information that you have to get in that box. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to be finished in about 30 minutes because we said we were going to do our session from 7 to 9 meet and greet. Tomorrow, we're definitely going to be talking about, I want to show you guys how I set up my Google business. And again, this is if you want to, this isn't mandatory, but Reese just recently got 2 weddings through his Google business. And what they did was they just searched for officiant and they were able to find him. And he doesn't even have a website. So, and that's another thing. You don't have to have a website for people to find you. Just as long as you've got try to set up your Google business so that way when people are searching for officiants, whether in North Carolina, South Carolina, people can find you. Another thing that we'll talk about tomorrow is definitely reviews. That's very, very important to get reviews from your couples that you've married. Because that also will drive your business. If people see that you're a good officiant, you're friendly, you make them feel welcome. Yeah, it's a business, but again, if this is something that you really in your heart want to do, I'm of the old school where I treat people the way I want to be treated. So that's how I treat them, almost like family, pretty much. And people tell me that all the time. They say, like, Miss Katrina, you just, you act like family because, you really, you make us feel important. You act like you really care about, you know, how this day is for us and how special it is. So, um, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about where you can get your leads from. There's so many different places where um, free websites where you can actually go and list your business if this is what you're wanting to do. And this is how you can also generate leads as well. We'll talk about social media. Um, well, again, we talked about scripts tonight, but we'll get into detail. We'll talk about the different payment options that you want to set up. A lot of people, they now have Zelle, they have Venmo. Some people have Cash App. I started out doing just PayPal. I would send out a PayPal invoice. So that's how I started out, but I expanded. So we'll talk about the different ways you want to get paid, from your brides and grooms, and then along with that, setting up budgeting for how much money you want to spend for advertisement. So, anybody else have any additional questions before we kind of get ready to begin to close out and prepare for tomorrow?
So on tomorrow, as far as advertising and marketing, that is one of those things that is not necessarily my strong suit. So as you did say, we will be doing marketing tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
The young lady named Taryn, she's going to be, she is actually working on she's revamping my website, and she is, I don't know if you got to read her bio that I posted out on Facebook, but the girl is a whiz. She's a whiz in marketing. She is a whiz in looking at where you're spending your money the most and not getting the best benefits. If that makes sense. So let's say you say, hey, on the Knot or Wedding Wire, which are some of those wedding apps, and you're not getting any leads, or you're on Thumbtack and they're charging you all this money, but you're not getting feedback. She can be able to tell you where to pinpoint and get, based on, the type of market and the type of people you want to market to, where to get the best leads. So very good. She's excellent. And then Brian is a pastor out of Texas. He's going to talk about taxes and how important it is to make sure that if you are doing this as a business, what how do you file your taxes at the end of the year? Um, so he's going to talk about that. Him and his wife also do weddings. They do counseling. So if you've got any additional questions about that, he's also a great resource about that as well. He and I had a great conversation, and he even gave me some nuggets about what to include in some of my counseling sessions, premarital counseling sessions as well. So I'm very excited that you guys will get to glean from him. And then my brother Ray, he's going to be also one of our teachers for tomorrow. He's going to be talking about how do you set up your business from A to Z. Again, do you need to be LLC? Do you need to be a sole proprietorship? What documents, what paperwork do you need to have? Do you need to be like myself? I have a general liability because the other type of business that I do, venues require me to have liability. So now I have insurance. You may not need to have insurance as an officiant, but let's say you have another type of business and you shift. So he's going to talk about that as well. So you guys are going to get so much more great information tomorrow And any other questions that you may have, they're going to have a Q&A session for you to ask them questions as well.
Okay.
All righty then. Well, Reese, did you have any additional questions or anything that you wanted to kind of share and piggyback on before we close out for tonight?
So,
All right then. Well, guys, thank you so much. I'm not going to hold the rest of your night up because I know we've got, a pretty busy day tomorrow, but I want to thank everybody that chimed in tonight. If you can think of any other questions that you may have, hold on to those for tomorrow. And Aquanita, I know you said that you may have a class, so we will, if you can't make it tomorrow, we will be recording that session as well, like we did tonight.
Okay. I will be able to make tomorrow. They changed it from tomorrow to the 18th, which is
Okay.
next Saturday.
Okay, great, great. All right then. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you coming on and sharing the information and the questions that you had. And be ready for tomorrow because it's going to be a great day.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you. You have a good night.
Bye-bye.